Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the video. It's 4:45 in the morning. The movie finished at 3 in the morning, and of course started at just after midnight. It seems the film was about 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 40 minutes, and boy, oh boy, what a film, what a conclusion. This is a spoiler-free review, by the way. While it's all fresh in my mind, I'm very hot and very sweaty. Just, bit too much, I can't speak. A little bit of too much information for you. Because those of you that were watching, I did go in full costume once again, and boy is it warm in the cinema that I went to. I actually went to Everyman Cinema in York, which is different. I've never been in there before. It's really nice. Bit on the expensive side, but it's very nice. And so it makes up in the expense with the fact that it's like quite an upmarket cinema, I must say. Definitely worth going, at least for a big film like this. So, what can I say about spoiling anything? Well, personally, as a both movie person and a massive Star Wars fan, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I was excited and apprehensive at the same time because I was worried, will they conclude this well? Will all the storylines be wrapped up? For the most part, yes, absolutely, everything gets wrapped up. A few things don't, but nothing of any super consequence. I think they should have probably gone the route that Harry Potter did and had 2 movies as one for the final film. I feel as though it could have benefited from that in the amount of stuff that it had to get through in that amount of time. I know some reviews pointed that out and said that it was a bit too, there was too much stuff. There was too much stuff just rammed in there, and it felt just disjointed because of that. I didn't get that vibe personally. There was a lot going on, but at no point did I feel like they were trying to ram too much stuff in there at any one time. I guess that's kind of a subjective thing where some people might feel as though there's too much going on, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing as long as it's done right. So, tiptoeing around spoilers. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about the story too much beyond the fact that I think it was very good. Again, a lot of things were resolved. To talk about things that are just in the trailer, it is good to see a lot of characters coming back. There are some surprise reveals. I don't think it took as many risks as The Last Jedi did. I know that film rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way, but personally I really enjoyed it by the fact that it tried to do something different. This film continues from The Last Jedi, and like some people thought it might, it does sort of try to retcon a couple of things, and apart from one particular thing that I took issue with, everything else was just a continuation of the story, so I don't really feel like it was retconning Ruin Johnson's film. But there was a moment that stood out, and I'll have to put that in spoilers, in the spoiler review. That one thing did stand out to me as it was almost trying to think what the best way to describe it would be, but I think it took me out of the movie because it felt so out of place that it almost felt like a personal attack to Rian Johnson himself. It probably wasn't meant to be like that, but that is definitely what it felt like to me, this particular moment that obviously I can't talk about. It felt very much like a complete roundabout face to something that happened in the movie, and it could have been handled very differently and still have the same effect, and will have still been a great scene. Again, I'll talk about that in a spoiler discussion that I'll link down below once I've recorded that, because I'm not going to record that as well at this time of night. I'm going to sleep on it very shortly, and save my mind for tomorrow. I'll remember everything that happened in the film. It was Star Wars. But yeah, what else can I talk about? Special effects, as always, really, really good. It is Industrial Light and Magic, after all. They pull out all the stops, and everything looks fantastic. Leia was handled very, very well. I don't know how much of it was fancy CGI tweaks, or how much of it was pre-recorded footage from filming scenes for the other films or anything, but it was so incredibly seamless that it was wow, that is good what they've done. And they didn't go the route of having to get permission to do a CGI layer or something, or just constantly have shots from behind her head or something, anything silly like that. So what they did was really good, and it's a fitting memory for her. That's kind of one of the things I was worried about going into the film. I was like, is this going to be handled well? Or is it going to come out really weird? Is it going to come out, maybe kind of offensive? Obviously, I never thought it was going to do that, but the worry is always there that, like, is it going to be, and Leia died earlier off screen? Ooh, I was worried if something might be done like that would be really awful and not a very good fitting end for the princess. So I think they did that really well. It was handled very well. And I think J.J. Abrams has done a good job. And I think he's managed to not do the things I didn't like in The Force Awakens, which is do, pretty much a remake of A New Hope. I think this film stands on its own quite well with what it's done. There are a few, obvious callbacks to the other films and stuff. Again, like some reviews, I don't think it's done too much of that. There was a suggestion that there was too much callbacks, too many throwbacks, too many references. Excuse me. Again, I don't think that's the case. I think it did everything well in that respect. There was still a good amount of comedy. There was still a good amount of drama and mystery and intrigue. I can't talk about them because obviously spoilers, but the new force powers that were rumoured, I don't know how I feel about them at the moment. While watching the film, it was cool, clever, and amazing, but at the same time, the kind of power that's shown, it does make you wonder why we've not really seen any of it before. I don't know if it's in any of the books or any of the things that are not canon anymore, but as far as I'm aware, this is the first time we've seen these type of force powers, at least on screen. Books, not entirely sure. I'm not that kind of a super fan. I prefer the movies and the TV shows and stuff. I don't really have a lot of time for reading, really. So I don't know how the new powers actually sit with me at the moment. At the time, they were really cool, but the more I think about it, the more I feel as though it's one of those things kind of like what happened in The Last Jedi with the whole, using light speed at a ship to damage it. And everyone was like, well, we've never seen this been done before. Why doesn't everyone do it all the time and stuff? It kind of feels like that. This kind of feels like something that might be a bit too much, but we'll go into it in the spoilers, because to say anything else now would spoil it. That's why it's for spoilers. And of course, as you'll have gathered from the trailer, Palpatine, good old Palps, makes a return, the Emperor. Again, not going to talk too much about it because spoilers. But it's great to have Ian McDiarmid back as Palpatine, and what they've done with him, I think, is kind of predictable. I think they could have done something a bit more clever with some of the things that happen with the reveals later on. I think a lot of it has been a bit too predictable, and one of the reasons why I liked The Last Jedi, flaws and all, was the fact that it was being unpredictable quite a bit. It could have done with a few less gotcha moments, but I think the way it was done was pretty good, and I think this was just a little bit, in places, not all of it, but in a few places, a little bit too predictable. But not in the sense that it made it bad, but more of in a, well, we all saw that coming, but where's it going to go from here kind of way. I don't think it was a bad kind of predictable, if that makes sense. It's not like boring predictable, like, yes, well, we all saw that coming, fall asleep. It was actually, still really good. And there's a few other twists and turns that are actually unpredictable. And, of course, everyone's been guessing for the longest time what the meaning of Rey is and who she is and all that kind of thing. Everything is wrapped up nicely. And, again, I feel maybe a few things were played a bit too safe, but not in a way that's particularly bad. It could have done with some more description. It could have done with a little bit more backstory, perhaps. But with the amount of time they've had in this one final film to actually explore, I think it's done a pretty good job of wrapping things up, if a little bit too quickly in places, if that makes sense. It's not to say the film feels rushed, but it's more like, it's kind of like they've gone down a list of things that fans have been upset about, and then gone, right, we can sort that out, tick. What's next? Oh, we can sort that out, make a mention of that, tick. There's a few things where it felt like, well, we could have had a bit more. Not just a little explanation, but like a bit more. This is what I mean about, I think it could have done maybe with being a two-parter. I know that would probably have upset a lot of people at the same time, but I feel as though it may have benefited from that. I mean, maybe we'll see some some kind of spin-off that maybe will delve into the greater lore of things. But yeah, I felt as though it could have done with just a little bit more explanation for these things that we'll go into in the spoiler discussion. Anything else? There's no post-credit stuff or anything like that. Obviously, it's Star Wars, it's not Marvel, but there's nothing extra at the end, so you don't have to sit around. It's nice to stick around for the music. Speaking of music, there is some fantastic music in the film. A lot of nice remixes and throwbacks, mixes of separate things together, twists and variations of certain familiar themes that you know, if you're listening, you know it's there. I know obviously some of it will be lost on some people, but for those of us that really like the music as well as the rest of the film, you notice, and it's pretty damn good. I mean, John Williams has done a fantastic job, and I hope he goes on to do more Star Wars music for the video games or any other spin-offs and TV shows that we're no doubt likely going to see. But yeah, for this Star Wars fan, this was a very good conclusion. It was quite emotional. I was too busy being too warm and sweaty, but there are a few scenes that really do tug at the heartstrings, and it is quite emotional. There were people that fully weren't emotional in the cinema because I heard them. But yeah, I kept it together because I was in costume and stuff. It would have looked a bit weird, just someone sweating and crying at the same time. But yeah, it was. I think they've done a great job with everything they had coming in from the previous two films. I think it's wrapped things up nicely. Whether that's going to silence some of the people that were really upset about the new trilogy, I don't know. Probably not. There are fans out there that will just seemingly hate it for hating's sake and pick parts big and small until there's nothing left but like a skeleton that they can also swear and complain about. You're not going to please everybody. But as a movie person and a Star Wars fan, I thought it was really good. Then again, I liked The Last Jedi, so what do I know, right? But no, I've liked them all. I even like the prequels for what they are. Obviously, we all know the crap. The prequel memes and more Star Wars. Can't really complain. So yeah, I think that's about all I can really talk about without delving into spoilers, which I'll leave for a different recording another day. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I can really cover. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'll be going back to see it again. Anyway, guys, that was my spoiler-free review. I hope you got something away from that. If you watched the film already, like I have, or if you wanted a spoiler-free opinion, then hopefully I gave you that from one fan to another. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. But if you didn't know what to do, I will tell you. I will tell you what to do so you don't get confused or anything like that. If you want to see more from my channel, things like this, because I don't do reviews of movies and stuff that often, but for things important to me, sometimes I do, like Star Wars, then hit that subscribe button. That's somewhere down below. It's probably right under my finger, I think, depending on what medium you're watching on. It could be further over that way, actually. And also give the video a like, I would appreciate that as well. Interaction is always nice. Leave a comment down below if you've seen the film, but don't spoil it for people. I will remove those comments as quickly as I possibly can. Please don't be that guy that does that. And yeah, see you guys in the next one.